Welcome. Tonight we're going to go over tax deductions for musicians. Quite a few people who visit my channel are musicians, so therefore I figured it would be a good idea to go over the tax deductions that musicians can write off on their tax returns. Now, if you only play occasionally here and there, then you probably don't have to worry because you wouldn't owe any tax because you'd only be making a little money. But those musicians that are seriously trying to make it will probably find that as time goes on, you're going to be making more and more money, and eventually you're going to end up having to pay some tax. So we want to deduct as many items as we can so we pay as little tax as possible. Now, some musicians may be sole proprietors, some may be LLCs, some may be S corporations or corporations. It doesn't really matter so much what type of business organization you are. The concept is the same. In other words, we're going to report all the income that comes in from playing the shows, and we're going to deduct the expenses by the various expense categories. So here we go. Let's go over what some of these expenses are. To begin with, we can deduct the cost of equipment. That would include musical instruments such as drums, guitars, pianos, percussion instruments, and any other instruments involved in the production of music. We could also deduct cameras and speakers, and we can also write off a computer because a computer is definitely needed in the production of music. Nowadays, a lot of musicians use musician software to produce their music. So a computer would be deductible, as would be the software. So we could deduct software such as music and video software. We can also deduct a spreadsheet like Excel because we would need to keep track of the income and expenses going out, so we could deduct that software. And we can also deduct virus software and backup software because it's important to know that the programs on our computer are safe. The next area that would be deducted by many musicians would be travel expenses. We can deduct the cost of hotels and car rental, plane tickets, local transportation such as trains, buses, cabs, etc. We can also deduct car expense if you decide to drive out of town instead of flying. You can take 50 cents a mile, so if you drive your car a lot, the mileage would work out pretty good. You could take actual expenses on your car or mileage, but the more you drive, the more the mileage would make sense. Then we can also take some miscellaneous travel expenses, such as foreign exchange fees if you travel out of the country. We can also deduct departure fees. If you go to the Caribbean island, for example, to play some gigs, when you leave the island, there's a departure tax. That is deductible as long as you are there on business. We can also deduct some miscellaneous travel fees, such as passport fees, as well as parking and tolls. We can also deduct meals while we're out of town. Now, for the United States, the meal rates they range from about $32 to $68 a day, depending on what city you're in. The larger cities and more expensive cities usually are closer to $68 a day. The smaller cities are closer to the $32 a day, and the medium cities are in the middle. And if you travel out of the country, it's usually around $75 a day if you're in an expensive city such as London or Paris. We can also deduct communication expenses such as your cell phone, telephone expenses, and internet expenses are deductible as well. And then promotional expenses, marketing and advertising, website development, website expenses, professional books, and you can even deduct gifts that you give to a club owner. Let's say you played there for a month, and at the end of the month you give the club owner a gift for letting you play there. As long as it's a small amount of money, you can deduct up to $25 per year per person for a gift. And then referral fees. If somebody refers you, let's say to a club, and you play there for a month, and you give that person a commission for referring you, then that would be referral fees, and that is deductible as well. Supplies such as office supplies, pens, pencils, paper, ink cartridges for the printer, music books, that would all be deductible. Postage and freight would be deductible. If you're selling CDs and you ship them out to your fans, the freight would be deductible. And if you're doing a mass mailing to try to land some more musician jobs or to get signed, the postage and freight would be deductible on that as well. You can also deduct the cost of printing up business cards or manufacturing CDs. There are some educational expenses that you can deduct. Now, if you're going to college, your first 4 years of college, there's a special American Opportunity Credit that's available, and you could get a very large credit if you're not being claimed by anybody else and your income isn't that high, which it probably won't be if you're in college. And even if you're going to college full time, let's say you're working for your associate's or your bachelor's degree, and even if you didn't work that year, you didn't make any money, you may still want to file a tax return, because if your parents aren't claiming you, or nobody else is claiming you, you might still be able to get a refund as high as $1,000, even if you didn't have any income or pay any tax. There are some tuition credits and deductions available if you're in grad school. There's a lifetime learning credit and there's a tuition deduction. They're not as good as the American Opportunity Credit for your first 4 years of college, but you might get some benefit from that as well. And then if the education is business related, then you can deduct it against your business income. So if you're already a musician playing in the field, then you can deduct music lessons and other musical related education. So for example, if you're in a band and you're taking music lessons or voice lessons, then you can write that off because you're already in a band or you're already a professional musician. However, if you try to take voice lessons to qualify you to be a musician, that wouldn't be deductible as a business expense because you're not in the field yet. So you want to make sure you're already in the field. However, let's say you're in a band and you play the drums and you want to take lessons to play the guitar so that you can play the guitar for the band as well. Well, that would be deductible even though you've never had guitar lessons before because you're already a professional musician. So that would work. Okay, the next category, and then of course any kind of consulting fees. Any advice from anybody on how to market your musician services or any type of education on how to get yourself signed or how to get yourself signed up for jobs, that would be deductible. That would be consulting fees. Then you can also deduct home office fees. You can deduct part of the mortgage interest, part of the property taxes. If you don't own a home, you can deduct part of the rent, or you can deduct part of the utilities, part of the homeowner's insurance, part of the repairs and maintenance, and part of the homeowner association fees and the security alarm system in the house if you have one. Anything that's related to the house, if you have a home office in the house, you can deduct part of those expenses as they relate to your home office, as long as you have an office in the house that's dedicated to your music work. Then there's some professional fees that are deductible. We've got tax preparation, accounting, and tax advice. Legal fees, if you get signed and you want a lawyer to look over your contract, that would be deductible as legal fees. You can deduct agent fees, recording fees, the cost of your CDs that you sell, and the cost of manufacturing the CDs, recruiting fees. Let's say you have a band and you've got a guitar player and a piano player and a bass player, but you need a drummer. Well, the cost of recruiting a professional drummer would be deductible. That would be recruiting fees. And then if you buy a song from another musician or you get permission from somebody to use their music and you pay a fee for it, that would be known as royalty fees. That's deductible. And if you try to copyright your own songs, the copyright fees would be deductible. Now, there's also appearance-related fees that you could write off. Headshots, hairstyling, musician costumes and uniforms that wouldn't be appropriate to wear on the street, that would mainly be for a show or a concert that you're giving, that would be deductible. And you can also deduct the dry cleaning of the uniforms as well. And then the salaries of the band members. If you're paying them on a W-2, you could deduct the wages that you pay them and the payroll taxes. If you're paying them on a 1099, then you can deduct what you pay them as contract labor. Then we also have processing fees. If you accept credit cards for payment of your services, you can deduct the credit card processing fees. If you're selling CDs, let's say on iTunes, you can deduct the commissions that iTunes charges. You can deduct PayPal fees, any type of processing fees related to selling your merchandise or selling your music. You can deduct that. You can also deduct bank service charges if you have a business checking or savings account. In addition, there's certain type of membership fees that can be deducted. You can deduct the union dues if you belong to a music union, and if you belong to any type of music organization or you subscribe to any music magazines or periodicals, that would be dues and subscriptions. You can deduct that as well. You can also deduct the cost of equipment rental, such as renting a credit card machine, or let's say you need to rent some instruments for a job that you're doing, and you don't want to bother lugging your instruments to the site, so you just rent some instruments. That would be deductible. And if you rent a concert hall to give a performance, the rent of the concert hall would be deductible. You could also deduct donations. There's money donations. That would be to any type of charity that's a 501c3 with the IRS. And you could also deduct the cost of donating your old music equipment. Let's say you buy a new guitar and you donate the old guitar, let's say to Goodwill or Salvation Army. Well, you could deduct what the old guitar is worth. And then there's some miscellaneous deductions. Some musicians may have to pay property tax on their equipment. It's rare. I don't think most musicians would have to worry about it, but if you do, it's a property tax on your equipment, or also known as an ad valorem tax. It's like a real estate tax, only it's on your equipment instead of your real estate. And if you have to pay a property tax on your equipment, that's deductible. You can also, if you decide to do a fundraising event, the cost of producing the fundraising event would be deductible. You can also deduct licenses and permits. If you need a permit to give a concert, that would be deductible. If you have a business license, that would be deductible. You can also deduct tools to fix or enhance your equipment. And you could also deduct any office expenses or miscellaneous expenses. The rule is if it's ordinary and necessary in the everyday course of your business, then you can write it off. So I hope that this helps. And if you like my video, please feel free to subscribe, because I'd like to send you my future videos as I make them. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.